Everyone is talking about evil Chloe. But that is not the biggest reason Wicked Wonderland suddenly feels like Descendants again. The real difference is that everything finally seems connected. The music moves the story. The friendships have something to lose. Wonderland reacts to the characters, and changing the past has created consequences that cannot simply be undone. For the first time, the new Descendants era feels like it knows exactly what it wants to be. So what changed? The rise of Red introduced two strong leads, but it often felt more like the beginning of a story than a complete new era. Red had the rebellion, Chloe had the goodness. The time travel idea was massive, but the movie spent so much time setting everything up that Red and Chloe did not get enough room to become the kind of friendship viewers could become emotionally attached to. That mattered because the original Descendants films were never carried by plot alone. Mal, Evie, Jay, and Carlos worked because the songs, friendships, arguments, and choices all felt like parts of the same story. Even when the world was ridiculous, the emotions underneath it were clear. Wicked Wonderland appears to understand that problem. Instead of giving Red and Chloe another unrelated adventure, it makes their previous decision the reason this story exists. At the end of The Rise of Red, it looked as though everything had been fixed. The Queen of Hearts was kind, Cinderella was safe, Red finally had the mother she wanted. But changing history did not create a perfect ending. It created a different problem. The official story tells us that altering the past created Maddox Hatter, and when he captures the Queen of Hearts, Red and Chloe have to deal with the consequences of the timeline they changed. That makes Wicked Wonderland feel less like a random sequel and more like the bill arriving for the last movie. Red and Chloe did something understandable. They saved people they loved. But Descendants becomes more interesting when a good decision still has a price. The new villain is not just someone waiting for them in Wonderland. He is evidence that their happy ending was never free. The next major difference is the music. Descendants songs work best when they are not pauses between scenes. They are confrontations, character decisions, and power struggles happening through choreography. That is why Dancing with the Enemy has connected so strongly with fans. From the footage released so far, the number does not feel like characters standing in place while a song happens around them. People move between groups, alliances appear to shift, the environment becomes part of the performance, and the choreography carries tension rather than stopping it. That is classic Descendants energy. The original films understood that a song could introduce a character, start a rivalry, reveal insecurity, and move the plot forward at the same time. Wicked Wonderland seems to be bringing that principle back. It is colorful, dramatic, and slightly chaotic, but the chaos has a purpose. The music is not simply telling us that Wonderland is exciting, it is showing us who has power inside it. The most important improvement, however, may be Red and Chloe themselves. They should not become copies of Mal and Evie. Red works because she acts before she thinks. Chloe works because she believes there is a correct and honorable way to solve almost everything. That difference is what gives their friendship potential. But a friendship only becomes important when the story threatens it. That is why evil Chloe is such an effective reveal. The transformation is shocking, but the real hook is Red's reaction. She is not fighting a random villain, she is trying to reach the person who changed history beside her. Red tells Chloe that she can decide her own fate. Then the mirror imagery presents Chloe as though two versions of her are fighting for control. And when Chloe asks, "Like the new me?" the scene turns their friendship into the emotional center of the conflict. The question is no longer only whether Wonderland can be saved, it is whether Red can save Chloe without losing herself in the process. That is the kind of personal consequence the new era needed. Wonderland also matters more than it may seem. The original Descendants films had the Isle of the Lost and Auradon. You could understand the people who lived there because each place had a strong identity. Wicked Wonderland needs the same thing, and the released footage suggests Wonderland is not being treated as a colorful background. The flowers open and react. Chess imagery controls the space. Clocks, hearts, paths, and oversized plants make every scene feel as though the world has its own rules. Wonderland appears unstable because the timeline is unstable. That connection is important. When a fantasy world physically reflects the character's mistakes, the setting becomes part of the story rather than decoration. Red and Chloe are not simply traveling through Wonderland, they are moving through a world reshaped by what they did. This is why the constant comparison with the original VKs can sometimes miss the point. Red does not need to become Mao, Chloe does not need to become Evie, and Pink, Max, Hazel, and the rest of the new team do not need to recreate the original four-person friendship exactly. The new era succeeds when it uses the ingredients that made Descendants work: strong music, complicated friendships, bold visual worlds, and choices with consequences to build a different identity. Red's story is not about escaping the expectations of a villainous parent in the same way Mao's was. Red changed her mother's history and now has to live with the world that decision created. That is a different conflict, and it should feel different. Wicked Wonderland finally appears confident enough to let it. None of this guarantees that the finished movie will work. The film still has to explain Pink properly, make Maddox more than a basic villain, earn Chloe's transformation, and deliver an ending that makes the time travel consequences matter. A trailer can sell a promise. The movie still has to fulfill it. But from everything released so far, Wicked Wonderland finally feels like Descendants again, because the music, characters, world, and conflict are all pointing in the same direction. It is not trying to replace the original era. It is beginning to find the heart of its own. Which part convinced you most? Dancing with the enemy, evil Chloe, or Wonderland itself?